G'day. Warm welcome to today's talk. My name is Damon Bramich, and with me today is Sifu Matt Stampe as we continue our journey through the history, the culture, and the practices of Tai Chi Chuan and Taoist health exercises. Okay, that's a great idea. I think we should have a little look at mindfulness in Tai Chi, and maybe a little bit of discussion about what mindfulness is in a few other areas.
So the topic on mindfulness is like when I first went to my very first Tai Chi class in the park, mindfulness was almost addressed right away. He was saying when you do Qigong, you have to be in the here and now moment. You can't be in the present
Yep.
or past. When you're working with Qi, to understand your Qi, you have to be in the present moment, and that's how you're going to understand your Qi.
Yes.
And so in a way, that's kind of like a mindfulness lesson.
Look, I think definitely just being in the here and now is
Mm-hmm.
possibly the most fundamental thing about mindfulness. How do we develop mindfulness, and what you see when you try and practice mindfulness is they're very different things. There's a lot you need to understand. Um, so if I just looked at mindfulness across the board, is body awareness. So if you look the word up, mindfulness, Google it, it would talk about body awareness, looking inside and being aware of what you're doing, what you are feeling, what you are experiencing at any given moment in time. Okay, so we can develop mindfulness by watching ourselves or concentrating on something or concentrating on doing something. And I think we all know what it feels like when we have achieved mindfulness, because we kind of get in that zone. You know, we're working hard, we're in the zone, we're building something, we're creating, we're concentrating. It could be reading a book, it could be riding a bike, it could be running, it could be anything. But our mind is completely involved in that process. And we're getting feedback of different levels. So it could be feedback from touch, it could be feedback from feeling
Any
sensation.
senses, any of the
Yeah,
senses.
that's
What I
correct.
like about the Yangchen Futin principles is the principle of harmonizing the inner with the outer. So you're knowing where you are internally with your situation externally as well.
Exactly. How does this relate to Tai Chi practice? Okay, what is the mindfulness purpose? It's about being present in that moment. And we have a whole list of things we need to do. And just looking at Yang Chenpu's 10 points in this is really important, because they give us a list of things we need to achieve.
There's some requirements that aren't touched upon enough that I'm experiencing after reading some of those Tai Chi magazine articles that I've been scanning with Fu Zhong Wen. He was talking about, the eyes, looking at the level of the horizon,
Mm.
and because we know the spirit is in the eyes in the Oriental medicine, and to follow the hands. And I noticed in the last couple of weeks that's really brings me into that here and now moment and quieting my mind deeper for Tai Chi. Um, what was I doing with my awareness before? Probably more thinking of more of an opponent and the move and how the move works and everything, or just watching what I'm doing. But now I'm now just kind of gazing at the hands, following the hands. Is actually made a little difference.
Okay. Okay. The eyes are probably the missing sentence from the Chenpu's first point, which is about raise the head, raise the spirit.
Right.
So, and we've done this in the school where we've drawn lines around the wall. Your eyes need to stay at eye level. This is important. Now, I'm going to show some people what happens when I look at my hands. We need to use our peripheral vision to look at our hands, not gaze on our hands, because we're going to lose the first point. So I'll just show some people what I'm talking about there. Looking at eye level, I'm still seeing my hands, but my head doesn't drop. When I look at my hands, see what happens to my head. We're all guilty of this. We're all guilty of this fault. Now, sometimes, and I'm totally honest with people, you can look at my videos and you can see sometimes I look at my hands. But it's really not my objective in the process. I really need to gaze to the horizon, as you said, and keep my eyes at eye level. Because why? It holds my head up. Now, you remember the video you showed me yesterday of the guy?
Forward head posture.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
Yeah. So the very first principle of Tai Chi in Yang Chen Pu's points is keep your head up. How can you achieve this? It's keep your eyes up. Keep your eye on the horizon, gaze forward. This is hugely important. Now, coming back to mindfulness, we need to learn the kinetic chain. That is the internal part of Tai Chi. And that's another point. It's further down, connecting the lower half of the body. I think it's point number 9, or is it point number 10? Connecting the lower half of the body to the upper part of the body. Connecting,
I think that's number 6.
Foot to number 6 is not using force. That's another one we need to discuss properly, because that one is misconstrued. We'll do that in another video. So keep out there watching for our videos. We're going to cover all these topics. Now, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, so hands follow the feet, governed by the waist. Okay, this principle of moving and connecting upper and lower parts of the body is essential. You need to use mindfulness to do this, and your mind needs to move through the body in this way. The importance of mindfulness is once you've learnt the form and you've created enough muscle memory, when you're in the pathway of development of the form, your form needs to have a martial mind. Now, the martial mind is a mind dwells within the wrist. Jin Li Dian. And this is important. So to achieve Jin Li Dian allows you to achieve Chan Si Jing. And that allows you to turn and rotate the Dantian. So in Tai Chi, the classics say that you need to develop a martial mind. Now, the other element in this is that your mindfulness is being aware of everything. And Tai Chi helps you become aware of everything.
It's a layered approach. It's not linear. Like
exactly.
When you look at the 10 essence, it's not like do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's like 10 things all at once.
Yes. Yes.
It's multidimensional. It's not that Western mind of, this lateral type of thinking. It's a layered thinking.
Definitely. So when I'm teaching the process of Tai Chi in a beginner's class, we will do warm-up exercises. So literally, I'm introducing the person to moving and concentrating on a joint, working from the wrist, the elbow, to the shoulders, then to the neck, working then into the back, opening and closing the back, working then down into the waist, turning the waist, working then shifting the weight laterally in a horse stance, side to side, with the waist turning. Then you
Mhm.
move into a bow stance. Then you learn to move forward and back first, and then you learn to move forward and back, projecting yourself in a straight line, so you're not twisting and turning. You learn mindfulness to learn where you put your feet in the right position. So you may go back and do Tai Chi walking. So you have all these layers of mindfulness. Really, the process of Tai Chi is introducing the beginner to themselves. And we need to go through all these layers. And then in some movements, we introduce an integrated breath regime. This can be very simple, where I'm just standing in a Fu Chi position, my elbows are coming up, relaxing and sitting, so I'm rotating the elbows and hands are coming up. So I'm getting this movement in my elbow joint, pronation, supination in the hands, my knees flexing as I sit. This allows me to relax and sink here, and then I can incorporate my breath. So we'll be breathing in on the up and breathing out on the down, or following my breath. And we do this in a step-by-step integrated way.
Mhm.
And
Let's circle back on the Yang Fu principle number one, the raise the head, because I've seen a translation of it where it also means empty. And when we think about empty, we have to like empty the mind of extraneous thoughts, like too much thinking. Like wave hands like clouds is like symbolic of, your thoughts are like clouds, there's a lot of symbology in the Tai Chi form, and so that emptiness of mind, that quality, that Wuji state, we have, it goes from Wuji to Tai Chi, and from Tai Chi back to Wuji. I mean, these all mean like very deep philosophical things in concerns to the consciousness and the emptying of the mind from extraneous thoughts, which can be harmful to your health. If
okay,
you're thinking too much, that's a sign that you're something's going on in your body.
so just made me thinking. Sifu used to say something, empty head, but he wasn't meaning that you're mindful.
Uh-huh.
No, that's a really good point, and that's something that I actually discuss in the first class or the second class. What happens when you start a meditation practice, Tai Chi, yoga, sitting meditation? You find that your mind is full of random thoughts. So you have too much going on in your head, i.e., you're
Mhm.
thinking about something that's happened, something you're not happy about, something you have to do, etc., etc., etc. We all know that
Mhm.
situation.
Right.
Some of it is created by a huge amount of belief systems, so that we have all these crazy ideas, and our belief systems, sadly, are transferred to us in our youth as we're growing up. And we need to learn to unwind all that garbage. It's kind of
Mhm.
like a filing cabinet. You need to put the file in its right order inside you, so you know what you need to do. So if you're having a random thought too much, you need to deal with that.
Have you heard of the Taoist philosophy of Xintian and Houtian? Like there's the prenatal and the postnatal. Like in the prenatal state, when we're in our mother's womb, we have that quiet mind, and then in the that's like the congenital, and then we go to an acquired state once we're born, and then we start collecting all this information, and so that's what forms who we are.
Exactly.
Um, and so
That is a
that's going to be a root of those
huge
thoughts.
subject. That is
Hmm.
a huge subject, because we are a product of our net experiences.
Hmm.
Okay. And we are subjected from a very young age to conform within our society and by our parents. So we need to follow that, whether we like it or not. So we deal with stimulus or charge by using muscular armory. So a sensation we don't like, we go tense. And you know this, you've seen it with your child. They don't cope with something, they go tense, and then They sometimes deal with the situation and they have the emotion. Other times they don't deal with it whatsoever. They shut down. That's a huge other subject, because this is the untying of our structure and our belief system through movement touches into this. But come back to just being simply mindful is where the mind needs to be in our practice. We have a myriad of places we need to go in a sequence for us to develop things like the 10 points. You know, so the harmony of internal and external really relate to this. Now, mindfulness can be seen in someone's movement, how they move. You can see when there's a real true master that follows the points, all the points, they have to be mindful in that process. So if they're leaving things out like a qua, like turning from the waist, they're not connecting themselves. If they're not transferring their weight properly, or if their stance is too wide or the stance is too narrow, if their shoulders are lifted up, if their elbows are too high, you know, if they're leaning too far forward, all these things.
That reminds me of the early in the older pictures of Yang Fu. You can see a vast difference in his quality of mindfulness. He looks much more relaxed and composed in the second set.
Exactly. You know, I 100% agree. And we don't see many of these deep qualities in some of the masters that are depicted to the Tai Chi world. It's the opposite. We're actually seeing a lot of non-connection and non-mindfulness levels. We hear a lot of talk, but we're not seeing quality of movement. Now, we refer back to Fu Zhong Wen's movement, Qianzong. He is so centered and so classically in himself, in his movements. And then you have other Tai Chi masters of the same age where they don't have all these points, the qua, the stance, the moving, they're not turning their waist, you know, they may look relaxed, but they also look collapsed, not holding your head up, not being spirited. So there's some interesting things about Taoism and people's height. You know, some of the old Taoist masters stood so tall, raised up with a raised spirit. You know, they're not collapsing, they're not leaning forward, they don't. And the goal of our process in training is to maintain as we get old and keep improving. And Tai Chi is a sport that you can keep improving well into your 80s. And I've seen this again and again and again. And the purpose of the long form is to develop mindfulness. And this is really, really important. And I think you'll know yourself, you've increased your training now, you know, 4, 5, 6 times. And there will be things that you miss and things that you start seeing about yourself. And then there's also this period where you transcend into this beauty of being a sense of your mind and body being connected as one. You know, there's euphoric experience. And sometimes you go through the form and then it's all of a sudden you get to a move like single whip, you know, or grasp the peacock's tail, and you go, where am I? What is next? Because when you're present, you're not concerned about what's in the future. And
I found myself doing that yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh, why am I on the other side? Like if you start facing north, somewhere in the form, I found myself facing south. I'm like, where did that happen?
Exactly. So through correct practice, and this is where the Jin Li Dian points become so critically important. So once you've learned all the form, once you've developed a level of unconscious memory that your body starts to do your Tai Chi form, and you reasonably remember the sequence, you start to pull in a different factor of mindfulness where you're connecting all the dots. So think of connecting the dots, dot to dot to dot. Okay, thank you. We'll wrap up today's discussion at this point, and I hope you enjoyed it. Now, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and please be welcome to leave your comments below. Stay well, stay healthy, stay fit. We'll see you again soon. Ciao. Bye for now.